Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back. Brandon again. I just got back from a week-long trip in Seattle, which I make several times per year, and I also travel other times throughout the year, and I always like to train when I'm on the road, and I know a lot of you guys like to do the same as well, but it can be kind of tough when you're traveling for work and have to pack all your work clothes and things like that. You don't really have the space to pack your gym gear, nor is it really that convenient because it can really add up in weight. So I want to kind of show you what I bring each time I travel, kind of narrowed it down to what works best for me. And of course, if you guys have other alternatives that you like to do or tips or tricks, make sure you leave those in the comment section below. So first things first, let's talk about the bag I bring. And to be honest, it's just my work bag. So this is a backpack I got from work, carries my laptop, and it always carries my iPad when I travel, which I only watch legally downloaded movies on, of course. And some other odds and ends, but it's lightweight. Obviously, it is a backpack, so it's easy to carry around. And it's small, which I think is very key because, again, when you're on the road or traveling, you don't want to be bogged down by a bunch of stuff. Now, of course, in the past, I also used to bring big old gym bags that are over the shoulder or whatnot. And while those are very beneficial for fitting more stuff in, the downside is when you're in the airport and you probably don't want to check it, and when you're in the destination city that you're going to, if you walk to the gym, like I happen to do in Seattle when I travel, it doesn't become that convenient for carrying around because it can get pretty heavy and it's just kind of cumbersome and takes up a lot of space. So everything I'm going to show you today is going to fit in this backpack, which is nice because, again, it means it's somewhat lightweight and it's convenient in terms of how much space it takes up. So the first thing I'm actually going to show you are the shoes I bring, and these are some Adidas wrestling shoes. I believe they're like the Reflex Speed TRs or something like that. I'll link these in the description box below. I'm not sure they make them anymore, but I got them on Amazon and they weren't that expensive. And one of the great reasons that I like to bring these shoes as compared to some of the others is they're lightweight, meaning that they don't weigh very much in your carry-on or in your checked baggage, depending on what you want to do. So you can carry them wherever you want. They also are pretty flexible, as you can see. You can literally ball them up in a ball, and they don't take up very much space. Now, the reason I've started to bring these instead of some other types of shoes that I own, and you guys know I own a lot of shoes, is because number one, they're flat, which is actually beneficial because that means I can squat, I can deadlift, and I can bench in them. In the past, I played around with bringing in heeled shoes with me, but those are heavier, take up more space because they're pretty clunky, and I couldn't do all three main lifts in them, so I found myself having to bring multiple pairs of shoes with me, which is something I really wanted to avoid because, again, I'm looking for lightweight and compact, and these wrestling shoes do the job very nicely. Now, of course, these might not be ideal for you if you're not used to a custom in flats. You might squat in Olympic shoes, which is fine, but I do think being able to be versatile with these can help you out, and it might actually feel a little bit better if you're just in that mindset where you think you need to wear heels, because as we all know, if you follow anyone on Instagram, there's this mass exodus from a lot of people wearing heeled shoes to something that's more flat or not as prominent of a heel. So for me, these shoes work great because, again, small, compact, light, and I can do all three main lifts in them. The next thing I want to point out are just some knee sleeves. I think these are important to bring just because my knees take a beating, number one, from flying across the country and sitting in those tiny ass airplane seats. Feel a little bit sore getting out and moving around, so these help for squats. You can wear these for other lifts too. You can use these for, let's say, deadlifts and use them to protect your shins if you don't want to pack extra long socks for deadlifts or whatever the case may be. These are pretty versatile. You don't really have to get very brand specific on any of this equipment I'm showing you for the most part, but I prefer to bring my Stoic knee sleeves when I bring them. And again, I'll link these in the description box as well. The only downside to bringing knee sleeves with you when you travel is you might want to make sure that you clean them before you go, or just have them in like a bigger plastic bag that's sealed, just because if some of y'all have some stanky ass knee sleeves, which has been known to happen, they can quickly overtake all of your work clothes that you're bringing and get you some funky looks when you're in the office. Trust me, I know from firsthand experience. So knee sleeves are a must for me. One of the things that I don't think is as big of a must, but I still like to bring, are some wrist wraps. So these are just the strong wrist wraps from Mark Smelly Bell. They're nice. I don't have much to say about them. I use them on bench. I use them on squat. I could get away with not using them. It's just personal preference. And actually what I usually do with these wrist wraps is when I'm packing my shoes, I'll take a couple pair of my socks as well, or I'll just take some of these wrist wraps and just literally just stick them into my shoes here. That way I always make sure that I don't forget them when I go to the gym. And again, they don't take up any space and they're very lightweight as well too. So some wrist wraps. Finally, last but not least, this is one of the newer things that I've been bringing, and that is not a weightlifting belt, because I always bring a belt with me when I go, but this is the Pioneer Cut Pioneer belt. And one of the reasons I've really started to like bringing this belt is for a couple of reasons. Number one, most of my other belts that I usually prefer to lift in are 13 millimeters, which means they're much more stiff, they're a little bit more heavy, and they're lever belts. Now, lever belts are great, those are my preferred way to lift, but what I found from when I'm traveling is that I tend to not eat the best, because in most cases I'm eating out for every single meal, and I might not be having, my normal amount of water, whatever the case may be. So my weight can fluctuate, usually on the plus side, or sometimes I feel bloated depending on what time of the day it is. It can be really tough with a lever belt having to adjust, because I always find that whatever my belt tightness is set on when I go out to travel, when I start hitting the gym, it's almost always too small. So this lever belt has been a little bit of a hindrance. So that's why the Pioneer Cut is so great, because it has these micro adjustments, and again, even better adjustments than a normal prong belt. And I'll show you a quick comparison of what the difference is in case you haven't seen. I have a review on this belt, which I'll also link in the description box below, but you can get a really nice fit and a tight fit almost every single time. A lot easier than your normal prong belts. And again, because you're traveling and you could be potentially bloated or just heavier due to the amount of food you're eating, you always make sure that you don't have to do any of these adjustments with the lever where you have to unscrew it, tighten it, and change it for almost every single workout. And again, because this is a 10 millimeter belt, so again, typically I like 13 millimeters, but when I'm on the road I like 10, because it's a much more easy, strong English. You shouldn't play with belts and try to talk at the same time, but it's very easily rolled up. Whereas with some of my 13 millimeter belts, they are more stiff and they're harder to do this. Another nice thing, because this is an actual prong belt, is if you really want to, you can just wrap it around and wear it around your waist, wear it around your backpack, whatever the case may be. And while you can technically do that with a lever belt, I actually found that the lever, if it gets bumped, can kind of open up and then the belt can come off. And I actually had that issue once when I was in Chicago. I ended up leaving my belt in Chicago because the lever came off when it was wrapped around my backpack and I didn't notice. But luckily, my good friend Zach Kravitz, who you guys may or may not follow, you should follow him, was able to actually go, since he lives in Chicago, get it and mail it back to me. So I'm very grateful for that. But now when I travel, I like to bring this Pioneer Cut prong belt, because again, it's quick, easy, and it always makes sure that I get the right fit. And again, the biggest benefit out of all this equipment that I'm showing you is that it fits in a small size bag and it's very easy and lightweight to carry around. And I've found that it helps a lot when you're traveling around, getting to different gyms, and still making sure you're hitting that all-important training. So hopefully this helps you a little. If you have other things that you prefer or other tips and tricks, again, leave those in the comment section below. But in the meantime, as always, thanks for watching and stay big.